everybody. Welcome back to this issue of Staffing Monthly. And I am really excited to have this guest on this month's show because he's legendary. This is somebody that has been in the game for over 40 years. Not only was this his only job, hired 6 days out of college, he went on to actually buy the company, grow it into one of the most nationally premier recognized recruiting and placement firms. And over 20 years ago, he actually decided to set out and teach the industry and his customers exactly how he does what he does, because he wants to help the industry and help people become better recruiters. And when he's not doing that, he is a noted playwright. He is a best-selling author with 2 very different books out there. And Danny Cahill, welcome to Staffing Monthly. I am flat out excited to have you here, man.
Thank you, man. Happy to be here.
Awesome. Well, listen, you've been doing this a long time. I've been in this industry. I've seen your content, and you tell it like it is. So here is the one question that I want to ask you about what's going on in your world. You are one of the premier trainers. Companies seek you out to train the recruiters up, train their staffing and recruiting professionals up. But what are the challenges they're bringing to you today? What are you most commonly seeing right now? And how are you guiding them through those challenges?
Yeah, it's wild that we're talking today because I think one of the big differences between the business now and when I started was just how rapidly things changed, right? So if a market was starting to shift, generally people would say, boy, I'm starting to feel a market shift. So I got to do something about this sometime this year, maybe next year. We'll see how it goes. And it just doesn't work like that anymore. You know, I mean, COVID was a great example of how threats come fast, they come furious, and you have to react now. Not next week, not 2 weeks from now, especially those of us who meet payrolls. You just don't have the luxury of, I'm going to feel this out, talk to a few of my contacts, and sort of get used to the idea that the market has shifted. So I think the market has shifted huge in just really the last month or two. So let me put some numbers to that. The data is pretty staggering, and I say this because you just got me 3 days after flying to a Pinnacle meeting, which is 75 of the top producers in the country, and we all meet twice a year and we talk about our business. And you know, it's a humbling time for these guys because almost everybody had the best years of their life in the post-COVID world, especially if you were working in technology, right? So it creates this false sense of security, and everybody does the same thing. When things are good, they forget when things were bad. So they all hire way too many recruiters, pay them way too much in the way of a base, and they don't have them doing any client development work because they run a rainmaker model, which is the top producer or the owner is the one that gets all the jobs, and they have all the client relationships. And the clients in the last few years have had 10 jobs, 20 jobs, 30 jobs. So you hire more and more recruiters, buy more and more sourcing tools from the internet. No toy gets left untouched. Everybody buys everything. And it's great for a while. And unfortunately, when the market shifts, it doesn't slowly shift. It's just like a faucet that gets turned off. So people at the meeting in Charlotte, the Pinnacle meeting, were, you know, I don't want to exaggerate. I don't want to say they were in shock, but it was more sort of here I go again. Why do I let this happen to me every 7 to 10 years when the market shifts? I have way too many people. I have way too much overhead. And my pipeline went from 100% to 30%. I had 50 jobs last quarter. Now I have 10 jobs, and all my clients are putting things on hold. So we have to learn the same lessons over and over and over again. I think the good part about this, if there is a good news, is that unlike some other recessions, like the 2009 recession, which was protracted. People forget now that we technically came out of the recession in 2010, but unemployment was in the eights until 2014. It was a at least turbulent market until like 2014. I don't think it'll take 5 years. I don't think it'll take 2 years to get out of this one. I think we have a rough 3 to 9 months before inflation gets brought down. But the good news is almost, and I say this with some trepidation because it's an election year, right? So if you read 10 economists, 5 on the right say the world's going to go to hell, and 5 on the left say this is just a blip. So the way I've always worked is I just sort of average out, their various political leanings and say most people are saying because of COVID, because of the economic stimulus, because of Ukraine, and because of China's COVID policies, inflation has been stubbornly high, but things are in place to bring it down, and it should come down from its 40-year highs now to a manageable 2.5 within the next couple of years. If that's the case, then we'll all be fine. The demographics are in our favor. Companies have an awful lot of needs for people, and the industry should do fine. But for the next year, the race is going to go to the swift, and this is not the time to be making 5 or 10 calls a day and leaning on your old clients. What I told everybody in my office and at Pinnacle was, okay, face the facts, get off your butts, and start doing the things that got us there. People in our industry are famous for saying, I eat what I kill, and I'm a commission salesperson. I eat what I kill. And it's like, okay, you haven't been eating what you've killed for years. You've been ordering Instacart is what you've been doing. And okay, those days are over. For a little while, those days are over. So, it's like they say in the Godfather movies, it's time to go to the mattresses and let's see what you got.
So that's interesting. So there's so many things in there that I want to pick your brain on, because I've heard you talk about, the companies that go all in on the shiny objects and the toys and the AI and all of that stuff. And, they kind of overlook the training part, which is really the foundation of all of those tools is the human being that's using them. Right.
Correct.
But, and I also want to get into the, how do you navigate those 3 to 9 months and be lean? So let's do that one first. Let's talk about how do they navigate the next 3 to 9 months that's kind of going to be grueling and not be complacent, and how do they go back to hunt and eat what they kill and do that effectively so they can come out and be okay on the other side?
Right. So first you have to dispel the myth, right? So here's the big myth. The big myth is, and I often get asked about this in seminars, and what they're really saying, if you read between the lines, is it's not my fault you got old, Danny, and the way you used to do it is not how it's done anymore. Nobody talks on the phone. It's all about texting, and it's all about TikTok and being on a Slack channel, and there's a lot to be said for all of those things. And clearly, email and texting are the primary mode of communication for younger, and I say by that I mean younger millennials, Gen Zs, Gen Ys, no question. But it is a myth that they don't talk on the phone, and the numbers are pretty staggering. So if you take all the social media sites, LinkedIn messaging, take everything, normal emailing to your CRMs, your response rate if you send out a blast is generally around 13%. The average recruiter with experience is going to get 2 to 3 times that if they make 100 phone calls. So it's just a myth that nobody talks on the phone. What's happened is it's become an excuse. I don't make phone calls because nobody talks on the phone. No, you don't make phone calls because in the last couple years, we hired people who were introverted, who were very good with the computer because we figured they don't have to make phone calls anyways. Well, guess what? Now it's a market where these passive approaches, which is what emailing and texting is, are supplemental, but they're not primary. Whereas you were able to get away with the last 2 years letting those passive approaches be primary, not supplemental, because companies needed so many people Fine, you sent me an email blast. Maybe you have some candidates. Sure, here's a posting. But that's not who they're giving to their job orders today. What they're giving today, I'll give you an example. We heard of Friday that a client in our niche just had a VP of sales quit. We only knew that because we'd been talking to the candidate. Well, the VP of sales quit, gave notice, freaked the client out. In a normal world of passive emailing, you send an email to that client in a cadence way over the next 2 weeks. And, the first email is nice to meet you. The second email is, if you ever have any needs, give me a call. And the third email is, I haven't heard back from you, so I'll let you go. It really hurts me that you're going to unsubscribe. Just passive, right?
Yeah.
We contacted that client this morning, following up on a rumor. Heard you lost a VP of sales. That sucks. We work in that niche. We can fill this job. And my recruiter has a 4 o'clock Zoom with that VP of sales and his president because he made the phone call. So it's certainly true that younger candidates are less likely to return phone calls. But really what good recruiters are doing is they're using emails to set up a phone call.
Right.
And in the past, you made phone calls to set up a relationship that might include email later. Now emails are how you set up phone calls, but it is a big myth to think that you can't get work done on the phone, or that clients are skewing a little older than most candidates. So some of these clients do in fact call back from emails. They do in fact take cold calls. So for experienced recruiters, you got to dust off that skill that got you there. And for the junior recruiters, they have to learn that skill. So we have been reactive to this market, and all our recruiters are asked to double the phone calls that they've been making. I hope it doesn't become a completely recessed market. I think it's important to say this, right? Nobody knows, right? Nobody knows. The best description I've heard is from Derek Thompson at The Atlantic, who said, this is the everything is terrible, but I'm fine economy, which is, you read all these data points saying, oh, the inflation's high and mortgage rates went up, but I just got a raise and I still have a job and most of my friends do. So it seems like I read about wars and I read about mass shootings and everything is terrible, but I'm fine. So I'm depressed about the world at large, even though my life seems to be okay. So it's a very weird market. Normally, inflation goes up, unemployment goes up. Now you have inflation going up, unemployment staying down.
Yeah.
So you can't listen to anyone, including me, making a prediction about what's going to happen. But I certainly can see the numbers, and the number of jobs have fallen 1 million in 1 month. 11.1 million jobs available in America in August, 10.1 available in September, which is kind of what the Fed's trying to do. Raise interest rates, slow down the economy. There were 263,000 jobs added in September. That's normally a good number, except for we averaged 450,000 for the last 2 years.
Yeah.
So there's less jobs. So who's going to get those jobs? You tell me. Is it going to be the recruiter who actively calls you cold, follows up with emails, politely stalks you, and gets you on the phone to talk, or the person that sends an email blast once a week because they don't want to be a pain in your butt? That person, I believe, is in for some short-term misery in this market.
I agree. And it reminds me of one of the pieces of advice that one of my very first clients in the industry gave me 16 years ago, was that the hungry dog eats.
Yeah.
And that always stuck with me. And that's that kind of initiative is what, led to some of the success that I've had. But
yeah,
so you hit something on the head that I love, is that you said that it's just an excuse. People say cold calls don't work, calling the phones don't work anymore. And really what that is because you have introverted people that are overemphasizing the miss rate. They're not focusing on the fact that they're still getting through. They're just being like, oh, like 8 out of 10 of these calls don't work, or 9 out of 10 of these calls, or 7 out of 10. They focus on the wrong part of the call, and that forms their opinion that they don't work. But here's the big issue, and I want to talk directly to the owners and leaders of agencies when I say this. When you listen to your people say that, and then you form your processes and you move away from the phone, you're moving in the wrong direction. what you should be doing is training your people, because a trained person that knows how to leverage the phone and leverage the call will be much more effective, and their mindset will focus on the hits, the conversations they had, and they'll say, hey, this is working great. And if you lean into that right now, you're going to have more superstars on the phone than all of your competitors that are abandoning it, and they're not going to be seen as hungry. So yeah. I think you hit that on the head, my friend.
Yeah, and you know, one of the things that we always marvel at Pinnacle is when you look at, again, Pinnacle is a consortium of the 75 top producers in the industry. 4 of them work for me. I was chairman for many years, and I spoke at this last conference last week. So this was never done on purpose, obviously, but we worked it out and we said, who are the top producers in Pinnacle? Who are the ones that are literally making millions versus the ones that are just doing very well? I mean, everybody in there is awesome, right? And there's very few common denominators among Pinnacle. There's people with master's degrees. There's people that never finished high school. There's people who were born with a silver spoon in their mouth, and there are people that were homeless. It's an amazing eclectic group of people. And there's old and young and fat and thin and atheists and Christians and everything. It's amazing. So it's very hard to find a common denominator, which is frustrating for my clients because they're like, tell me what the profile is so I can hire them. But one of the few common denominators we can find is some of the top producers came from the class of 82, which was people like me, the class of 93, the class of 2002, and the class of 2010. If they started in a recession where it was very difficult to get people on the phone, there were less jobs, then they had to want it so bad. And of course, they were new, so they didn't know how bad it was. So if you started in a good market and then all of a sudden you come into a recessed market like this, it's shocking to you that all of a sudden, 6 months ago, people were taking my phone calls and giving me business, and now I can't get anybody on the phone. Whereas if you start in a bad market, and here's the data, like when I started in the early 80s, which is might as well be the Pleistocene epoch at this point. But when I started, it took 30 calls to get a job order the year before I started. The year I started, it became 10 times harder, 300 calls to get a job order. But I didn't know that because I just came out of college. Right. And so I thought everybody around me, I thought everybody in my office who was whining about how hard it was were just wimps. I thought they were just snowflakes. So if I had to get a job order that week, otherwise I'd be fired, and it took 300 calls, then I made 500 calls. I made 100 calls a day for 5 days. I didn't think anything of it. So then when it became in the mid 80s, Reagan era politics and the greed is good, Wall Street years, it seemed like an absolute picnic to me. It seemed like stealing. So the problem now is this. A lot of the people who listen to you started in, 2015, 16, 17. A lot of them maybe got hired in 2020 in the post-COVID, oh my God, there's so much business. So think about that. They don't know what a bad market is. Hell, they don't even know what a good market is. Yeah. They've only known the greatest market anybody's ever seen. So this slight turn down, this slight pullback of 11 million jobs to 10 million, 450,000 jobs a month, 263,000 jobs a month, seems like the Great Depression to them. And it shouldn't, but they don't know any different, right?
That's fascinating to think. So then by that account, technically speaking, the next wave of superstars in our industry are going to be the ones that are hired probably a year to a year and a half from now, right?
I had someone start last Monday. I will hire 10 people in the next year. And everybody be like, what are you, crazy? There's no business out there. So yeah, there is business, and they will find it because they're too dumb not to. And they will be my top stars 2, 3, 5 years from now.
Yeah, that makes sense. If they're hired within the next year, like, and then you're just focusing on training them and developing through this market, they're going to be just launch.
Absolutely. Wow. Absolutely.
Wow. That's fascinating. So I don't want to go too long, but I want to come back to my other point because I know you got some good thoughts around what all the resource partners out there, everyone is pitching a new shiny object, a new shiny toy, automation, AI, machine learning, all of this kind of tools and everything to kind of pseudo eliminate the recruiter, right? And we see a lot of people buying everything on the shelf and then bringing it back to their agencies, and then it doesn't work.
Yeah.
What is your experience of this, and what is your thought around that?
So yeah, and don't get me wrong, I love technology. I mean, any recruiter that works for me has a LinkedIn recruiter seat, and we use Zoom Info. We have a big investment in Bullhorn and a CRM, and we have a business intelligence tool that's connected to all of it. So we have a cloud computing system. So I don't want to give the impression that I'm a Luddite. Having said that, the single biggest in my subscription service, according to Danny, one of the central things is an Ask Danny function where you can ask me a question and I answer all questions within 24 hours. In 2016 and 17, the number one question was, is our automation going to replace us? And you had Andrew Yang going around saying, you know, there won't be any jobs in 30 years and we have to have a universal basic income. And that was the single biggest concern people had then, is our AI going to replace us? And our industry was labeled as easily replaced, but the industry that was labeled as instantly replaced was radiology. That they would come up, there would be no need for a radiologist because an artificial intelligence tool could read that scan without any human error, and there just would be no need for it. And everybody was in a panic because there were so many people in college studying radiology and they thought radiologist was going to be a great career. So COVID comes along and you learn something really important, that if there was any gift to COVID, the gift was it showed us how silly that notion was. That, what did you hear early on? The only people that can go out are the essential people. To me, the lesson I learned from COVID is I am certainly not essential. The people that are really important in life are the people in the grocery stores and the law enforcement people. Those people cannot be replaced. And then we found, as things passed on through COVID, that these artificial intelligence tools, while good supplements to recruiting skills, it certainly helps you find candidates faster. But almost all these AI tools are on the front end, right? Every AI tool is based on, we can source them faster than someone else, no question. But what I've been telling my clients for years is the front end of our business sourcing has never been easier. The back end of our business, securing these candidates, getting relationships with them, getting their trust and getting them to actually do something has never been harder. So no, you're not paying me to find candidates. You should be able to get an intern to do that with a LinkedIn recruiter seat. But what good is it if they can identify people who do not want to interview with you, who they can't negotiate a salary with, who don't understand what is really going on in their lives and how to overcome the fear of change and convince them to actually take a job. So, you know, I liken it to, I saw a survey that said that 66% of people in America can drive a stick shift car. Can you drive a stick shift car?
Yeah.
Yeah, so can I, right? Yeah. But 2% of Americans have a stick shift car. So you have this.
I don't have one. So I'm in both.
Right. And how long ago did you have one? I had one 10 years ago. So in other words, you have this skill that is completely useless to you. So you get one of these artificial intelligence tools, and in the demo, they wow you with it. It has this functionality and that functionality, and it allows you to do this, and it'll find out the history of this candidate, and it'll send you 10 candidates you can call today. Great. And then you find when you call them that none of them call you back. So the tool really doesn't do much for you other than get you frustrated faster than it used to, right? And they're very expensive. So every time artificial intelligence gets talked about, I'm like, look, at the end of the day, you'll find it is a supplement to make you effective, but it is just a tool that cannot replace what we do, because what we do is salesmanship. It's, don't get me wrong, if they come out with an AI tool that is able to read people as well as I can, then yeah, I'm a little nervous.
Google's working on it. Google is working on it.
Sure, they all are, and they'll scare you sometimes, and they'll show an AI tool that writes a poem, and you go, "Wow, yeah, that is as good a poem as a junior in high school could do." But those aren't the books of poetry that you buy in the bookstore, what a junior in high school does, right? To me, the bigger concern is not AI, but medical technology. In other words, AI doesn't scare me. I don't think it can replace the ability to persuade and read people. I don't think it can replace behavioral psychology. Try though they might. I get more nervous because I work in the biotech and life science space. I get more nervous with medical stuff. In other words, if they get to the point where they say, we lost a controller yesterday, but we're cloning one tonight and we'll have them in the morning, then we're all out of business.
Yeah.
But that isn't happening.
Yeah, so you're exactly right there. And I think, when you're talking about how these tools come out and they're supplementary, I think really all a new tool does for our industry is we have to equate it to new tool means a different type of training and skill set. How do I complement the skill set that my new recruiter, is going to need, or my recruiter is going to need to use this new tool? And it's kind of the equivalent of the carpenter and the hammer when they upgraded from the hammer to the nail gun, right?
Yeah.
Like you still need the carpenter, but the carpenter had to figure out how to use the nail gun. If they would have went around just smashing the nail gun into the nail on the board, they probably would have been worse off than had they just learned how to use it like a master. So I think
that's a great analogy. Yeah, I love that.
They need to. You can use it royalty free, man. But that's what they need, and that's really why I wanted to reach out to you and some of the other premier trainers this month, is to focus on coming into these lean times. Don't forget to train your people. I feel like because times have been so easy over the last couple of years, training has gone to the wayside, and now we've got these people that are going to go into the famine period of time, and they don't have a sound set of skills or a baseline of techniques that they can fall back on, right? They always, one of my favorite quotes is, you don't ever rise to the occasion, you always follow your highest level of preparation, right? And people who don't have a base of training are going to fall further, and those agencies are going to take a big step back as they go to these next 3 to 9 months. So
and you keep saying the word training, but when you say training, what I hear is sales skills. In other words, for 2 or 3 years, it was just send out a bunch of email. Are you looking for a job? 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 On the client side, it was just, we have this great staffing company. Do you looking to hire anybody? Looking to hire anybody? If they got a yes, which they got 20% of the time, then you had a job. But in the real world, in most of my career, the job starts when someone says no. We'll make money this year, but it won't be like last year. Last year it was, we saw your posting, we know you've been looking, we work in that niche, we've just filled 2 searches like that, we've got some candidates, would you like to see them? Sure. Here's my fee. Okay, that's fine. Now you're going to get into, we're going to make placements this year where a significant portion of them will be, we called the client and we said, do you have any needs? And they said no. But a half an hour later, we got past that, overcame that objection because it was just a reflex objection. And we got a search from someone who said no. And then we called a candidate and I said, are you looking? And he said, no, I'm happy where I am. And 3 weeks later, the candidate who said he was happy is going to work for the client who said they had no openings. In other words, my people will go back to basics, which is, we don't fill holes, we create holes. We create candidacy, we create jobs. We solve problems for clients. We're not just trying to follow up on someone who's already showed us a need. It's just, at the end of the day, to use a sports analogy, there aren't going to be any ground balls. There's not going to be any layups. There's no gimme putts. Let's see what you got. Yeah,
no, it's true. And it's one of the things when you mention the reflexive statement of no, we don't have any needs, or no, I'm not looking. It is, that reminds me of the greatest and most frequent lie that I tell in my everyday life. Anytime I'm in a store and a clerk asks me, hey, is there something you're looking for today, or something I can help you find? No, I'm just looking, right?
Yeah.
It's a reflex, which is weird.
Yeah.
I never go into any store just looking. Like, I hate to shop, right? I
Right.
hate, so, but like, I instantly just go into this. I'm going to lie to this person because I don't know what their intentions are. I don't know them. I'm just
Yes.
going to try to figure this out on my own.
Yes.
But if they just walked away, then that's where I'm left in my own mediocrity of fumbling around a store that I don't really want to be in looking for
Yeah.
something. But if they just said, hey, no worries, but if there's something specific that you're looking to find and you want to get out of here as quick as possible, just let me know what that is. I'll take you right there and we'll get you on your way. I'd have been like, all right, well, this is actually what I'm looking for.
Yeah. Absolutely. There's a natural resistance to being sold, right? But on the good side, though, if that's the worst lie you tell every day, then you're okay, because mine are much worse than that. Yeah. Absolutely.
I think you're getting into the aging disgracefully book there.
Yeah.
So
Sad to say.
all right, I got one last question for you, because the theme that we've been on at Staffing Monthly over the last couple months is how to find more and better talent. So if you're going to answer this question right now, what is the number one piece of advice that you can give to recruiters out there to help them find and engage more and better talent?
So there's no way you can do the job, in my mind, without LinkedIn. At the same time, LinkedIn has ruined a generation of recruiters because it's made us match centric. When there's 600 million profiles, you tend to look for the profile that fits. But the best recruiters, and this was, again, just went to a Pinnacle meeting and had this reaffirmed for the upteenth time. The best recruiters never get off a call without saying, appreciate your time. You've been generous with your time. Let's stay in touch. Who do you know that you respect enough to want to help? So clearly this job isn't right for you. Who do you know that you respect enough to want to help? The best recruiters are making their placements from getting referrals, and they have the habit of asking every single person that they talk to, who else can I talk to? Who do you like? Who do you appreciate? Who do you think is the best person that's ever done this? They're getting referred to people, and Talent Act and HR is playing the same sort of post-it and hope game that a lot of bad recruiters are. And they're very passive, and they never ask for a referral. The best recruiters are referral centric, not match centric.
I love that. I love that, man. And that technique worked really well for McDonald's. Do you want fries with that?
Yeah, that's right.
They told their
Exactly.
tellers to ask that every single time, and their sales went,
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah.
And so that makes sense. Who do you respect enough to want to help? I love that.
Yep.
Awesome. Danny, man, I am grateful for your time. I'm glad for you coming on here and sharing your wisdom, and I wish you nothing but continued success, my friend.
Back at you. It's a pleasure.